Hi, this is P.D. Parker, and as we're coming up on Thanksgiving and so many other holidays, there's a moment to sit and think, what really means the most to you? What are you thankful for? What choices have you made? Can you make them positive? Do you make them negative? You know, what really gets to your heart at this time of the year? I'm going to share a personal story, and that is one that it was a choice to go to a meeting. I went to this leadership meeting, and they were talking about Og Mandino. And Og Mandino back in the late 70s and 80s was like the guy of wisdom. It happened that he wrote The Greatest Salesman in the World, and it sold millions of copies. But let me tell you about his story. You see, when I was in this leadership meeting, they kept talking about Og, and I kept thinking, I know I've got his book someplace. And when I got home, what I found instead was a trilogy, Og Mandino's great trilogy. And I realized I had never opened this book. And when I did, he talks about his story of being grateful, his story of his life, because it goes like this. When he was a little boy, his mom used to say, "Oh, Og, you write such good little stories. Someday you're going to be an author. Someday you're going to be that writer." And so he always believed that. And all through school, he saved his money so that he could not have to work, he did not have to have the big job. He did marry, he did have a child, and he spent every dime writing to only be refused. Not a publisher would take any one of his stories. It happened that he started drinking, and he started to spiral down. He lost his wife, he lost his life, he lost everything he had ever thought would be important to him, and he was on the street. And one day he's leaning against the pawn shop window, and he looks around, and there's a gun. And he looks in his pocket, and there's $26. And he's going to go buy that gun, and he's going to commit suicide. But as he turns around, there's also a sign, "Help Wanted," with Clement Stones. At that second, the turning point in his life, he made the choice to answer that ad. He not only answers the ad, but Clement Stone gave him a chance and an opportunity, and he became such a great salesman himself that Mr. Stone said, you need to write this down someplace because you need to be training other salespeople. So he wrote the book, The Greatest Salesman in the World, and he wrote it to help salespeople be better salesmen, and it's just a parable. It's a wonderful story. When he gave the manual to Mr. Stone, he gave it to his wife, and they were on a trip, and his wife read it, turned around to her husband and said, "You need to read this." Not only did he read it, but he had thousands of copies made for every salesperson everywhere, and this book grew and grew and grew to be one of the most popular books in the world. Well, the story does not end there, it begins there. Because Og became such a good writer that he signed the largest contract he had ever signed or ever thought he would sign to write. And as he left the publisher, he walked out in the rain and he went into a church just to dry. And something drew him like a magnet to the altar. And as he reached the altar, he got down on his knees. He put his eyes to the heavens, and he cried and cried and cried and said, "Mom, wherever you are, just know that your little boy is a writer. Thank you. Thank you." Now for me, after I read that, and I read this beginning in his book, I also noticed that Og had autographed it for P.D. Love, Og Mandino, in 1974, and I had never opened the book. But my mother evidently had sent it to me, because when I opened the book like this, a card fell out, and it was, "Love, Mom, and your dad loves you too." And I got down on my knees, my eyes to the heaven, and said, "Hey, Mom, you know when I wondered what I believed in? You know when I couldn't really grasp my faith? You're the one that says until you do, you will never be happy. Well, Mom, your little girl is leading the good life now, and thank you." What are you thankful for? Does it take you a lifetime to figure it out? It's Thanksgiving, and for some of you, it will be the turkey, it will be the family, it will be the spirit, and there is nothing wrong with that. But take those few minutes, whether you get down on your knees, or you just have a quiet moment, or you just have the time that you can say, I have so much to be thankful for. I made good choices. Og made his choice to really make something of himself. You make those good choices, and then be thankful that you've had people along the way. That's it for us. Happy Thanksgiving.